Position yourself as an investor when you're talking to companies, and you'll never run out of people to talk to. So now we're going to talk about pre-positioning. This is pretty simple. If you're looking to have people interested in talking to you, what do you think the best positioning would be as you approach somebody?
Give them some value.
Give them some
value. Help them.
Give them some value. Great. If you were going to put, say, a title on who you were, like what you do, what do you think would be the best title to have if you could pick any one you wanted when you're buying companies?
Giver.
Giver? Yeah, that's good. What do they want usually? What does every company usually want? Money, right? So who has money? Investors, right? So to me, be the thing they want. Don't go in saying I'm a buyer or I'm an entrepreneur even. Say I'm an investor. Because you are. You might invest with something other than cash, but you are an investor. You might invest with cash, right? You never know. So I would strongly suggest that you immediately, if you perceive yourself to be an investor and want to buy companies, that you modify your social media profiles to say that you are. I list myself as an investor every single place. That's really smart not because a bunch of people you're going to put investor on your thing and you're suddenly going to have 1,000 companies that come to you, but when you're talking to people and they go to check you out, you want to be congruent with what you say you are online and offline. So I think it would be really smart, whatever you do, to also include investor in your social titles. Position yourself as an investor when you're talking to companies, and you'll never run out of people to talk to. So let's talk about the ideal size of a company. I mentioned that private equity companies want larger deals because they don't want to waste their time with smaller deals that take the same amount of money and time to do. So we want to think about that for our businesses too. And so the size of the business to buy, this is the annual sales full-time U.S. business owners. The size that we want to really focus on are the top 13%. And so that's businesses that are doing between 500,000 and $1 million, which represent 4% of total businesses, and businesses that are doing more than $1 million, which represent 9% of total businesses. That's sales between 5 and 30 million is kind of the sweet spot I have found. You might find different, and 5 to 100 employees. Why would I only want companies that have some number of employees? And I really like 10 or more. Means the owner's not working, means they have to manage, right? They're, at least, even if the owner's there now, there's a good chance if they've got 10 employees, there's somebody that knows what's going on that we can bump up. 728,000 businesses that fall into that sweet spot for us, so there's no shortage. Okay, so if you're concerned about that, if we all run out tomorrow and buy 1,000 businesses, we're still going to be okay. So what type of business should we buy? I think I'm going to show you the general way if you're not looking within your industry first, and then we're going to go down narrower and narrower to in your industry down to specific assets you might buy. So for general research first, find a public company in your current industry, or if you don't have somebody that's public that you can identify easily, find a business that's similar. Then Google the company name and acquisitions. Take a look at the list of all of those acquisitions, and then make notes of the types of companies. Because the very first thing we want to do is know what type of company should I buy. Vinny Fisher, who is one of our War Room members who has a company called Fully Accountable, came to me at the last meeting and said, man, I'm ready to do these acquisitions. And Vinny was an M&A lawyer. And he said, but I've never bought a company myself. I don't know what kind of companies I should buy for this. And so we went and did a little bit of research, which I'll show you here, and you'll see what we came up with. Then make a list of the types of companies that the public company acquired that might make sense for you, because it might be buying things that you don't care about. So for accounting, we Google publicly held plus the category, so publicly held accounting firm, and it turns out that the big four firms are not public. They're privately held still. So if you don't find a publicly held company, then Google largest in the category. So largest accounting firm, we find that the big four is Deloitte, Ernst & Young, KPMG, and PricewaterhouseCoopers. Fantastic. Then we identify the key comps to buy. So once you find the company, right, then review the list of their acquisitions. So Deloitte acquisitions, it says growth through acquisition. Yay, Deloitte's going to actually tell us on their own site. The nice thing to think about is that the exit is very similar to the buy. You're going to do a lot of the same kind of research, right? So they say strategic alignment, each of our acquisitions must meet this strategic fit stuff, and they tell you kind of what it is. And then they say, contact us, and here's somebody if you want to talk to us about this. Kind of cool. And by the way, now we know corporate development is kind of what a lot of these big guys call their M&A people, if they don't call them M&A people. They might also call it investments or strategic acquisitions or something else. So then I'm going to look at one of the things here, and I see there's this company called Crunchbase. I would highly recommend that you all sign up for a free trial for Crunchbase. I get nothing from it. Crunchbase is a great resource, though. What they do for you is they kind of do the work to make it easier. So now if I go to Crunchbase and I put in Deloitte, you can see that it tells me that they had 39 acquisitions. And then it lists every single one of them, tells me when it happened, and then I can click on any of those companies and it'll tell me about the company. So now I'm going to get an idea, because I didn't remember Vinny's like, I don't know what to buy. I said, well, let's look at what the smart big people are buying. So now we're looking at that through this list, and we see we've got one that's agile methods for problems. That doesn't tell me a lot, but it does tell me that it's in the category of apps and CRM. So they're buying companies that are in those kinds of areas. Then they bought Terrace, which helps companies and their managers plan change. Okay, that's still a little vague. But another one now that's doing CRM and Salesforce integration. So maybe you should think about integration companies, Vinny, right? And then another one, Well Placed Cactus, best name of a company that I saw on this list, is it's actually an entertainment studio. So they're doing this probably to do content, right? So that might be something interesting for him to think about. Here's another one that does computer upgraded systems, and another one that does tax, risk, and M&A advisory. Another one that does networking, so software networking and cloud solutions. Another one that's a managed security service provider. So now we've got all these categories that we didn't really know about before, and presumably Deloitte is sophisticated enough to actually maybe put some research into the kinds of companies that make sense to help them grow the fastest. They're a pretty good company. So let's just check them out, and that might be a path for us. It might not, but that's a good place to start. Also, on Crunchbase, they will list investments. So while they told us there were 39 acquisitions, there were also 5 investments. Larger companies frequently will make an investment in smaller companies that they later intend to buy, for either to keep competitors away from them, so that's a good indication that I might like that industry, or just to kind of put a toe in so that they can see how they're doing and they're like first up to do the acquisition later. So I would also look at investments. And you can see that there were several investments here as well. Okay, so you keep going through this until you find a whole bunch of different categories of companies to buy. I'm not yet care about specific targets.